Hi everybody, it's Martin Twycross here with another video short. In today's video I want to talk about the practice of closing down and closing down rituals and ask the question, do we need to do them? Is that something that developing mediums and mediums who are working need to do at the end of every session? Do we need to close down? I understand that for some of you this topic will be a little bit controversial, or maybe what I'm saying will be a little bit controversial. If what I say resonates with you, then do go with it. If not, feel free to let it go. As with all my teachings, if it works for you, go with it. If it doesn't, let it go. So if that interests you, stay with me. Okay, so closing down. Closing down. Now, when I first started attending circles and classes, way back in 2001, a number of teachers in circles would teach students to close down at the end of every circle or every class. And closing down usually involved a number of rituals. The main ritual was closing your chakras. We had to close our chakras down, and there was a variety of ways I was taught to do so. One was to imagine each chakra. We have 7 chakras: the crown chakra, the third eye, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral, the base. Imagine each one at a time as a flower, just closing up tightly into a bud. Another teacher taught us to imagine them, visualize them as lights with all their different colors. And almost one at a time to flick the switch to turn that light off, just starting at the top, working all the way down. Another teacher whose circle I went in taught us to put saucepan lids over each one. A saucepan lid on the crown chakra, on the third eye, and that way you've closed over and closed your chakras. Other things that were included within the closing down rituals was to invoke some form of protection. Imagine ourselves in this bubble of protection, or imagine ourselves being wrapped in this cloak of protection, almost like an invisibility cloak from Harry Potter. Another one was to imagine yourself being cocooned in a sleeping bag and zipping yourself up so that you're totally protected from the spirit world. Now, with protection, I do talk about protection in another video, and I shall post a link to that video at the end of this, and also I shall post it in the description below. So check that out if you want to understand what I teach about protection or don't teach about protection. I'll leave you to see it, to figure it out. So another thing they used to ask us to do as well as part of this closing down ritual was to imagine drawing in our aura. So when we're working, we're expanding our energy field, expanding our aura. And when we're not working, we're closing it down and pulling it in and just bringing it right close and tight to us. And those were the kind of rituals I was asked to do, and they never really truly felt right with me, if I was brutally honest. And I'd go to other circles and classes, and there was no closing down ritual, there was no closing down practice. And I'd go to the Arthur Findlay College. After a certain period of time, I started attending the Arthur Findlay College, where I should say as well, I've done a great deal of my training, and where I'm now an approved tutor. And I noticed at the Arthur Findlay College that none of the tutors ever taught closing down. So we got this problem where some tutors teach it, but a great deal don't. So do we actually need it? That's what I always think. When I come across any practice, I want to understand, is this helpful to my development? Is this helpful to my practice of mediumship? Or is it a hindrance? Is it a barrier? Is it something that is not needed and we can let go of it? So that is how I approach closing down. So what is the purpose? If we ask all these tutors who teach closing down, what's the purpose of closing down? And many will tell you, well, it's to close yourself down, it's to turn off your psychic senses, it's to shut yourself off and bring you back to normal. And the other thing they say, it's for your own protection. We want you closed down from the spirit world. We don't want you open to the spirit world. We don't want your light to be shining bright in case it attracts negative spirits or bad spirits, or you're open to problems from the spirit world. And again, if you want to understand what I feel about protection or needing that kind of protection, see the video on protection. So that's the kind of thing they would say to us we need to do it for. We need to shut ourselves down, switch ourselves off, protect ourselves, make sure nothing bad can happen, make sure all those chakras are shut. And that gets me thinking, can you actually close your chakras? The chakras are energy centers, spinning wheels from the Eastern tradition. And the theory is that whilst we're alive, it's those chakras that bring in the life force, and they're always functioning. And there is a theory that if you close them, you'd be dead. So I don't believe you can shut off your chakras at will like that, turn them on and off like a light switch. And so for me, you can't close your chakras fully anyway. Next point, how would you know that you've closed your chakras or you've closed yourself down? How can I tell I'm closed down? And the simple answer is I can't. You can't. There's no way to tell if you're closed down. You're just trusting the process has worked. But if there's no way to tell, why do we do it? It does strike me as a little bit odd. And then let's look at what actually happens after a circle. So we have a circle, we get the students working together in pairs, doing psychic exercises, doing mediumship, doing all sorts of things together, and then you close everybody down at the end of the circle, and what happens? All the students get back together with each other and say, I was working with you and I forgot to give you this, this and this, or they can start giving feedback to each other, and they start opening up a little bit, they start opening all their chakras again, they may even link with the spirit world again, so they've opened up psychically, they're no longer closed down, and that happens routinely at the end of circles, at the end of workshops, at the end of classes. So for me, when I think about it, closing down is not really a practice that makes any sense to me. I can't see the point of it. It's a bit illogical. So do I teach it? No, I don't teach closing down. I'm sure you'll have figured that out from what I've just said. But why do other people teach it? Because a great number of teachers do still teach it. So why do they teach it? And in many cases, they'll tell you, well, that's what I was taught in the circle I went to. That's what my teacher taught us to do. That's what I learned. And people tend to teach what they themselves were taught. That's very common. And most tutors who do it are very well-meaning with it. They want to help their students. They're doing it for the benefit of their students. They're not doing it because they're trying to harm anybody or give anyone anything unnecessary to do. They generally come from a point of well-meaning with it. So if I don't teach closing down, what do I teach? If I don't do any of that, what do I do with the students I teach? And the simple answer is I teach discipline. For me, closing the chakras, closing down is the wrong terminology. It's the wrong concept. What we need is mediums who are very strictly disciplined. And I teach there's an appropriate time and place to work. We work when we're in a circle, we work when we're in a class or workshop or course, we work when we're doing a private sitting, or we work when we're doing a service or a demonstration. If we're doing self-development exercises, we're doing meditation, we're open, we open ourselves up then, but at other times we don't. So there's got to be a time and a place, and when we're working, we're on, and when we're not working, we're off. Very disciplined, strict discipline. Secondly, I teach that we must always work only with permission. We should never be given unsolicited readings to people who do not expect it. We shouldn't be working for somebody in the queue next to us in the supermarket. Oh, by the way, someone's here from the spirit world for you. Or even worse, oh, your energy looks a bit odd, have you been feeling all right? No, we don't want that. For me, we only work with people with permission that means when they expect it or when they've asked us to work with them. If someone comes to a demonstration, they're asking, they're effectively giving permission. If someone comes to a sitting with you, they're giving permission. But people you meet on the bus or on the street, they're not. Don't work with them. And then we have to respect the sacred nature of mediumship. Mediumship is a wonderful process, but it's a very sacred process. We can't just be doing mediumship willy-nilly, left, right and centre. For me, it's not entertainment. It's not a party trick. It's not something we do to show how good we are. We don't do it for our own needs. I'm going to give you an example. In my own development where I worked inappropriately, I broke a lot of my own rules here. And I just started working platform as a medium at that point. I developed enough and I've been on platform for a little while. And I'd explained to some of my work colleagues at work what I did. They knew what I did. They knew I was a medium. They understood that I worked in churches and centres doing public demonstrations. And they kept badgering me to show them how it worked. And I was said no. And down the pub one evening after work, they kept badgering me. And after another drink, I decided, okay, I'll show you how it works. So I made a link, like I would in a church. I made a link, got a gentleman, brought him through, brought lots of evidence. And one of the girls there in the group, she just burst into tears and ran away. Never came back for the rest of the night. And I felt dreadful. I felt awful. Turned out it was her grandfather. She wasn't expecting it. She wasn't able to cope with it. It was too overwhelming for her and she was off and it spoiled her night. And I have to take responsibility for that. It's my fault for doing that. Because first of all, I had no permission to work with that lady. She hadn't given permission. It was the wrong time. It was the wrong place. Secondly, I was egged on to do it through alcohol. Alcohol and mediumship, those spirits do not mix your spirits. Not necessary. So Again, wrong time, wrong place, and I wasn't showing enough respect for the process of mediumship. So I learned hard that day that when we work with discipline, we do it right, and we do it in the right place, and we do not harm people. Whatever we do with our mediumship, we must never harm people. And that day I upset somebody, I harmed somebody, I spoilt someone's night. Not on. We don't do it. So if people don't have discipline, what do we see? We have the concept of what's called the leaky tap medium. And the leaky tap medium is somebody who's always on. Drip, drip, drip. They're always working there. It's drip feeding. It's psychic snippets here. It's, oh, I feel you have 3 children. Is that right? No, I have 4. And, oh, I feel there's a gentleman here. I feel it's your grandmother. To somebody in the supermarket queue. To somebody you sat next to on the bus. Or worse still, you go to a funeral and you decide that, oh, I'm getting the deceased through and I'm going to go and see their loved ones and tell them lots of information about the deceased. No, wrong time, wrong place. Or you meet somebody in a meal or in a pub and they tell you that they've recently lost someone. Now that is not a sign for you to go and get them with a link from spirit. That's not a sign to say, okay, let's make a link with them and bring them forward. No, always with permission. Always when you've sought permission in the right place, the right time. And I find that when many mediums, the licky tap mediums, they're bringing through information, some of it's not even mediumship or psychic work, or some of it's just rubbish, to be frank. And the quality invariably of so much of it is poor. And a lot of it shows a lack of respect as well for the spirit world and for the people you're working with. So don't do it at inappropriate times, don't do it without permission, and make sure you're respecting spirit. And don't just do it because you've got a captive audience. Someone stuck next to you on a bus, sat next to you at a table in a dinner party, sat next to you in a pub or a bar. No. So that's one of the issues with lack of discipline. Now, why do people do it? Now, I understand why they do it, because when we're learning mediumship, when we're learning to use our psychic awareness and our psychic faculties, our psychic skills, it is truly exciting. It really is. We're learning a new skill, and we're ever so keen to practice that skill. We're ever so keen to use that skill. And many of us want to help others. And, you know, if we've had a link from the spirit world that's touched us, we want to bring through the same for the people. And generally, it's this overexcitement that causes it. But what they haven't been taught is discipline. What they haven't been taught is the harm it can cause if they work in an undisciplined manner. So what I teach is discipline. I always teach my students right time, right place. You're either on or you're off. No leaky taps. We don't do leaky taps. We always work with permission. And if you were to follow those guidelines, what you'd find is that whenever you do work, you're giving it your 100%. You're giving it your full attention. You're giving it everything, and it will work so much better. It will improve the quality of how you work. And if you continue to work with that discipline, it will really benefit the unfoldment of your mediumistic gifts, and it will make you a much better medium. If you work psychically here and there, mediumistically here and there like a leaky tap, you squander the power and the energy that we're building to work with spirit, and you will never fulfill your true potential working in that way. So I hope you understand today, from today's video, why I personally don't do closing down. I don't see the need for closing down, but what we absolutely must do is discipline. Discipline is key. So I hope that you found that this video is useful. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, do hit the like button, do leave a comment, and do subscribe to my channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to receive notification of future videos like this. Thank you.